And that is, I just want to talk a little bit about where we're at with higher ed. So what is the state of artificial intelligence and higher ed? Like Michael Paulus, I too am taken with the idea of laboratories of hope and with Antiqua et Nova as a document. You already saw the quotation, so I won't read it again. But what I will say is that we not only can't ignore this, but we have an opportunity to do more, to think about the idea of researching with AI with wisdom and creativity. And in order to think about this last piece, ethically sound applications that clearly serve the cohesion of our societies and the common good. By the way, that is, in essence, part of the mission of Creighton University, and so we have to apply it to AI just as we would all of our other work. As has been made abundantly clear today, AI has arrived, and we can't just ignore it, and we have not been. Whether you have followed each step along the way or because things are happening all over the place, I want you to know that Creighton is doing a lot about AI. To start with, I have been working with a couple of folks, including Cindy Schmerzel in Mission and Ministry, so that we can create a document that guides our use and adoption of AI tools based on our mission. This is not policy, these are not rules, these are not requirements, but a way for us to think about how what we do at Creighton should be part of our choices along the way. And we hope that that guidance will be out early this fall. Knock on wood. It's done and will be working its way through levels of approval. In addition to that, the Center for Faculty Excellence has been amazing at building out a whole host of resources for faculty. Over lunch, they're going to talk about some of the tools and resources that they have, and we're lucky to have Molly Hines from the CFE here who will be doing that. And so that's been one of the big elements. We have the library initiatives. Each college and school has been kind of doing their own thing, especially with lots of leadership in this space at the undergraduate level from the College of Nursing, the College of Business, and the College of Arts and Sciences. There's been just so much that they're doing to help prepare their faculty. And I know, though not my area, that our other schools and colleges across campus are doing the same. We have the changes to the core curriculum today, and then importantly this fall, the Teaching and Learning Symposium that the Center for Faculty Excellence puts on annually will also include elements about our adaptation to artificial intelligence, and one of the speakers, featured speakers, is going to be Eddie Watson, who is one of the co-authors of the book Teaching with AI and has become a real leader in how higher education is adapting. He's a great speaker. I recommend that you check that out, and you all got a little card with that information when you came in. So our job is to help develop students into people of competence, conscience, and compassion and community. This obligation extends to hearing about AI. That first sentence is out of our mission. And so we need to extend that to this new work. Artificial intelligence is increasingly integrated into our daily life, often in ways we can't see and understand. Its disruption of higher education affords us the opportunity to think about how Creighton University's mission and Catholic Jesuit identity can guide us through these changes. AI is heralded for its ability to mimic the ways humans think and learn. At times, interactions with AI can even feel human. Yet we cannot let AI upset or replace our understanding of the divine creation of the human person. We are called to discover our common humanity through encounters with our fellow humans. As we enter into these tensions, we are mindful of Pope Francis's urging that we must protect human dignity in this new era of machines. And this paragraph is the current draft, the start of the current draft, the preamble to that guidance from Mission and Ministry that will be coming. Don't quote it yet because we're still refining it. But it is really about focusing on where our identity comes in so that as we adapt, we can make the argument that we're doing so in a way that is uniquely Creighton and true to our values. One of the fastest places where that adaptation has occurred and to my amazement at the speed with which we're making this change is in the Modus Core curriculum, which is kind of my area of responsibility. And what we've been able to do is in 3 places, potentially in a student's experience, they will learn about generative AI. Not core related, but in our Ratio Studiorum program, which is our first year advising class that every undergraduate student takes, we have an optional section on AI and academic misconduct so they can think about issues of plagiarism and cheating. And by the way, if you ask our students, they would like the optional part of that to disappear. They believe everyone needs that. Also, they all take a 1-credit online class called Com 101, and the Communication Studies Department has been fantastic about partnering with the library so that every student is able to engage in the question of AI and information literacy, which is really important to their skills here at Creighton. And then last but most exciting for me is the undergraduate schools recently adopted changes to our designated technology requirement that will allow students to think about AI use and the ethics of AI use in their profession or field. And we built around 2 outcomes based on competence and conscience. Students will demonstrate effective use of generative AI tools in their area of study and or future profession. Students will analyze the ethical dimensions of generative AI in their areas of study or future profession. So we're pushing them to specialize and be ready for the workplace when they graduate because they'll be expected to have this knowledge. We've already seen that. Now, responses to this have been interesting. Some folks are really excited. Others are begrudgingly accepting it. This is part of a trend that some schools are adopting, but we are the first school in the AJCU to make this change. At times, there has been strident criticism, some fair and some worrisome. When I shared that we were doing this on Blue Sky, the social network, the first reply was someone comparing me to a Nazi appeaser. That was a bit much. But again, I just don't think we can ignore this. So now that that's what's happening at Creighton, I want to talk about some of the broader trends in higher ed. And to start with, as the library survey shared, where are students at? So this is a survey of Gen Z, which I'll remind you is ages 13 to 28. So our future, near future students, current students, and recent graduates. Lining up with the findings from the library, about 80% say they use AI. About 47% say they do so weekly. Like us, there's a large group of them that are anxious, about 41%. Interestingly, when we ask if they're more hopeful or less hopeful, only 27% really feel hopeful about this technology. They're where a lot of us are at, contrary to the idea that they're all using it for everything. But even if they're not necessarily hopeful, we do see about 36% who feel excited. While more than half of them agree that AI has the potential to make their work more efficient, they're only slightly more likely to say artificial intelligence will help rather than harm their ability to search for accurate information or think creatively. They are like us, worried about hallucinations, worried about misinformation, and more than twice as likely to say AI will harm rather than help their critical thinking skills. Among them, about 47% of them report that their schools permit them to use AI. About half believe that their school should be required to teach them about AI, something I'm proud to say Creighton now does. About 28% say they've been given some explicit permission to use it, so more than it's allowed, but they're directed to. And about half have no clear policies at all, and they are struggling without guidance. One of the things we know about students today is they are not great when we don't help them understand what we want. And so that's part of our challenge as well. When we look at the workforce, just over half say their employer has no rules about this, and only 11% report that those rules are extremely clear. About 36% say the risks outweigh the benefits and we should just stop. I'd be curious if that is about right with where faculty are. Only about 20% say the benefits outweigh the risks, and the rest are somewhere in the middle. When they looked at whether they trust human-produced work or AI-produced work, 64% said they rather trust human-produced work. Now, for our healthcare professionals in the room, good news, that number rises to 98% when you ask them about a doctor. Worried about the 2%, but that's okay. Where are our faculty at? Well, there are some extremes in the faculty position, just like with society in general. Some are ready to inaugurate the AI university and bring this technology into every facet of our work. A good group of us through the CFE, through departments elsewhere, have been reading Eddie Watson's co-authored book, Teaching with AI, and immediately trying to think about where this will impact us. Others are scared and want to abolish it altogether and are making strident arguments for why they should. One such is from this document by a former faculty member of mine at the University of Utah, Rob Gell, called The Organic Academic, where he writes, "We, the undersigned, pledge to never use generative AI for any part of our academic research. We are defining generative AI as systems that artificially produce new data based on older analyzed data. Generative AI is being hyped by for-profit corporations such as OpenAI, Adobe, Google, Microsoft, and Apple, being placed prominently in web browsers, word processors, and email clients. It's also increasingly being promoted by academic publishers and services. Its wide-scale adoption seems to be inevitable unless we refuse. Our refusal to use generative AI for our research stems from several fundamental problems." And they go on to list them. Undermines the research process, legitimizes corporate theft of creativity, reproduces bias. They are responsible for their research. It can lead to privacy violations, and it's destroying the planet. That's the other extreme. And the reality is that many of us fall somewhere in between, which is why we're here trying to do the work. I want to talk about 6 issues that are present right now in higher education around AI, so we can think not with these as problems, but as opportunities and challenges as we move forward. And because Creighton exists for students and learning, we should start with impact on learning. One is that lots of us have had to redesign assignments. Things that used to be good, easy challenges for students or ways for them to express their thoughts and ideas in words now can be easily completed by ChatGPT. And we've had to cope with what that looks like. One of the things I've noticed that I'm worried about is that students are starting to rely more and more on AI summaries of readings rather than reading. Though I'll note the complaint that students aren't reading is now several decades old, at least in my experience, and for many of us, much longer. And also using AI to produce study materials for them. While these can be helpful, we should remember that when AI summarizes things, it is 1, an expression of probability, and 2, it shows often some bias for what's earlier in documents rather than later. So when it's longer materials or a number of materials that they're trying to upload and use, it can be harder. Third is real concern over critical thinking. Perhaps the most important skill we can teach our students is how to think critically about their world and adapt to new information. One study recently found that while Gen AI can improve worker efficiency, it can inhibit critical engagement with work and can potentially lead to long-term over-reliance on the tool and diminished skill for independent problem solving. Higher confidence in Gen AI's ability to perform a task is related to less critical thinking effort. When using Gen AI tools, the effort invested in critical thinking shifts from information gathering to information verification, from problem solving to AI response integration, and from task execution to task stewardship. If we just throw these tools at students and we don't guide them on how to use it in ways that reinforce and build their capacity for critical learning, we will fall short of what they need as learners. A separate study was looking at differences in cognitive load by having students search for information both with a search engine and with an LLM. And what they found is that while the work it took, the cognitive load placed on the student to find the information was lower with generative AI, it also meant that they demonstrated lower quality reasoning and argumentation in their final works. Their critical thinking was harmed. So as we think about the challenge around learning, we have an opportunity to not just let these tools play out in the background, but to use them in ways that build on our students' capacity to think critically with them, which is what they'll need in the workplace. Second is burnout and unpreparedness. Look, we're still tired from COVID. Many of us had to make significant changes to how we teach. Some of those have stayed, many of them that went back to our practices before, and we are tired. And guess what? Just a couple years later, another significant change to how we do our work. And we're still tired. And we have to recognize the immense amount of labor that this change asks faculty to do. Something I'm well aware of because I'm now asking those who teach these classes in the core that we're changing to do more labor. I hear lots of folks just feeling sad, feeling burned out, feeling like it doesn't matter anymore because students will just cheat. More on that in a sec. We also feel burdened because it's just more work. All of these adaptations to AI have not come by a wonderful decrease in our other workload. Faculty say they describe trying to grade hybrid essays, half written by students and half written by robots. They describe spending hours grading papers that took their students seconds to write. Quote, I've been thinking more and more about how much time I'm certainly spending grading and writing feedback for papers that were not even written by the student, one teacher told me. Now, I have a more generous view of our students, but I do think in some instances this describes where we are, and it is demoralizing. Now, the fears about academic misconduct is probably in the educational setting the biggest issue that I hear. It's always academic misconduct and environmental concerns hand in hand with one another. We have seen numerous reports about a steady increase in academic misconduct related to AI. That has led a lot of faculty to turn to AI detectors, like that tool built in to Turnitin.com. I will tell you that the concern is they don't work. They don't. They have a significant problem with false positives and have real potential to lead us to accuse students of using AI when in fact they didn't. Our effort around stemming academic misconduct related to generative AI is not one that will follow the path of AI detectors. And just so you know, students who are using this to cheat are often using one tool to generate the essay and another tool that takes out all of the characteristics that these checkers would look for. This is an arms race we won't win. And on top of that, if we just assume students are doing this, it creates this antipathy towards them, this permanent suspicion of what they're doing and what they're producing. And at least for my part, I don't want to spend the rest of my career acting as the AI police. It's not the fun part of teaching. I don't want students to get away with it, but also, if I'm not sure that's what they did, I don't want to spend my time accusing them and getting them in trouble. AI detectors are often marketed as solutions for maintaining academic integrity, but their significant drawbacks often outweigh any perceived benefits. False positives can cause emotional and psychological harm, unwanted academic penalties, and long-term consequences for students. The software that aims to flag AI-generated content in student work, however, AI detection software is far from foolproof. In fact, it has high error rates and lead instructors to falsely accuse students of misconduct. OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, even shut down their own AI detection software because of poor accuracy. That's right, the company making the system can't even build a good system to tell if it was one of their products. We have a real moment and ethical dilemma when we approach this idea of academic misconduct. And if there's one thing I will urge all of you in this room today to do, is to back off using AI detectors as foolproof evidence of student misconduct, because they are not. Next is the idea of institutional adoption and skepticism. First of all, as evidenced by the people here, faculty are all over the place in how they feel about it and how they're using it. Also, the idea of academic freedom means that the university can't really come in and tell us how to use this or not to use it within our classrooms. What that means is that institutional adoption, both here and elsewhere, is uneven. Skepticism is real, the critiques are real, and in fact, we are seeing around the country strife and angst between faculty, even within the same department, over how to adapt to this. Even when institutions are considering adoption, there is worry that proprietary private data will be included and leaked. Oh, and by the way, if these systems are not clearly compliant with FERPA, using any student work to uploading any student work into them opens us to significant legal risk. And for those in healthcare, as you probably already know, the same goes for HIPAA and patient information. Private data needs to stay private data until we know what the data controls are and how we may use them. And that's separate entirely from the broader question of if at all this should be used as part of the evaluation of student work. Last is, we keep getting asked, what will the university policy be around AI? And I understand that question. In fact, in the institute that the group of us worked at, there were 2 other schools in our team that were trying to write the one policy to rule them all. The AI policy that will cover everything and solve every solution. And they worked for 9 months while we were working on our changes to the core, and when we presented our final results, they presented their ongoing conversation to build their one policy. And the provost, I think rightly and rightly observed, maybe it's time for them to realize that means they can't find that one policy. Instead, we are going to have to establish norms for what we do in our classrooms, what we expect our students to do, as well as what is coming in our field and acceptable with our research. Don't wait around for the one policy. Next is the issue of financial burden and equal access. Another question I get after policy quite often is, well, is Creighton going to provide us with an AI tool? We'll see at lunch. Molly Hines will demonstrate a little bit about our access to Copilot. I will tell you right now, buying a campus license is expensive. And we are not in a moment of higher ed where our budgets are swelling. And so if we're going to pay for it, that money has to come from somewhere else. And I know that's something that IT is looking at right now, and when we have our new head of IT, that will be a topic of conversation, but we can't wait for the tool that Creighton will provide for us, some future better tool. We have to work with what we have now. Second, if you've been to a conference lately, you have probably been sold on, or tried to be sold on, some form of ed tech that now has new bloatware, AI added into everything if you just pay a little bit more. We should be skeptical of both the budget impacts and also the quality of some existing tool where they just connected to an API and now it has AI. We need to be thoughtful, critical, and use the framework that is developed by the library to help think about whether those tools really help with our students. And then last, we need to think about access among students because it's asymmetrical. Some are paying for this and can afford to pay for this, others can't. And so thinking about that relationship, we cannot assume that they have the money or are paying for these tools if we build them into our assignments. And so we have to think, are we asking them to pay for it? Is that part of our course requirements? And what does that mean? Just to give you a sense of the cost, the California University system has a deal with OpenAI to the tune of $17 million for their version of ChatGPT. That came while they lost in appropriations $375 million. There's not more money. It's, are we shifting dollars around? For campuses that have actually gotten their own tool, usually that money comes out of the IT budget. Some say there have been no associated costs. I want to know more about that. And then others are funding it by individual departments and sometimes student fees. For schools like Creighton that have not adopted a university-wide tool, the biggest issue is concerns about costs. also ethical questions and cost questions. So higher ed has yet to figure out whether or not we should have these tools and how to pay for it. And then last, and I'll go real quick to keep us on schedule, is workforce readiness. We have already seen our current students applying for internships and our graduates applying for jobs asked about their AI skills in interviews. And by the way, if their answer is, I don't have any, that interview is not going well. One of the reasons why faculty made a change in the undergraduate core curriculum is because we know this is a requirement. And while lots of my colleagues don't love the argument that we have to teach something because of the workforce as opposed to the development of the student, it still matters. And unfortunately, that varies quite a bit by discipline, how it is used, and that's why we have incorporated it into a specialized area of their major where they learn this. But the demand is already there. On Handshake, a job search platform for college students, a share of job descriptions that mention ChatGPT and other generative AI tools has tripled in the past year. So our students are expected to have these skills. Those are the broad issues that we are seeing right now in higher ed and a piece of how Creighton is adapting to these changes. I'm going to stop talking at you now for the rest of the day, and we're going to move into a break and then down into our concurrent sessions. The rooms are up here, and I'll leave this up. Can the folks leading our concurrent sessions stand up? I know some snuck away to their room, but wave high. Thankfully, our wonderful and passionate faculty have taken on the challenge of leading these sessions. Many of you, when you registered, signed up for either newcomer, advanced, or technical. Newcomer is, I'm brand new and I don't know what I'm doing. Advanced is a little bit more intermediate. I've used it some and let's go deeper. And then technical, as a reminder, is that like I want to build something for myself. I'm ready to do some of that custom coding. The rooms are here. The only thing I'll note is that space is going to be a little tight in the advanced session, so just keep that in mind. And so take a break, find your way to the session that you registered for, or if you don't remember, think about what one's appropriate. Did you want to say something? No, it's all right. And we'll see you all in those rooms in 15 minutes. Thank you. Thanks, Sam. I felt it. All right, everyone, can I have your attention for just a moment? We're going to briefly, not so briefly, I don't know, we'll see, interrupt your lunch. And I'm excited to invite my colleague, Molly Hines from the Center for Faculty Excellence up. Molly is one of our instructional designers, an amazing colleague to work with, and who has done so much to curate the collection of AI tools and resources that we have on campus. And so while you're lunching, we're hoping that you can learn a little bit more about the resources that we do have so that even after today, you can continue thinking more about how this impacts us.